Jack Nicholson, a private investigator, a patient in a mental institution, and the Joker. It doesn't matter the role, he's always the coolest guy in the room. With a legendary career spanning 6 decades and 3 Oscars, Nicholson did more than just earn awards. He set his own rules and did things his way, saying it himself that he doesn't make movies, he makes classics. He improvised some of the most memorable lines in film history, fought his way into the industry as a writer, and never hesitated to bend a script to his style. He wasn't afraid to stand up for what he believed in, whether it was about the direction of a film or how his character should be portrayed. And Nicholson always became the character with an unmatched mix of charisma, intensity, and unpredictability that made each role uniquely his. In this video, we're diving into his career, how he pushed for his breakthrough, how he timed it perfectly with New Hollywood, and how his improvisation and reimagining of characters helped build his legendary status. This is the story of an actor who did whatever he wanted. This is Jack Nicholson. But first, I want to take a moment to talk about the sponsor of today's video, Displate. I love decorating my room with various trinkets and posters, and Displate has helped me level that up. They offer high quality metal posters that don't come with the worries of creasing and folding that come with paper and canvas posters. With over 2 million artworks available in the Displate catalog, they'll for sure have something for everyone. They have officially licensed designs from the likes of Star Wars, Marvel, Elden Ring, and many, many more. And even new original artwork from thousands of creators around the world, making it an awesome platform for artists to share their designs on metal canvas. And on top of the glossy and matte finishes, they recently released the new Textra finish, now available in large sizes. This new finish brings textures and 3D contours with selective matte and gloss effects, really pushing what a poster can be. With so many cool designs in Textra, it'll be easy for your Displate collection to exceed your wall space. But Displate has a solution for that. The magnet mounting system. Tool-free, safe for your walls, and only takes seconds to mount with the ability to swap displays anytime you want. Click the link in the description or use my code FILMSTACK to unlock a deal. All the posters are printed in the European Union, and they offer very fast 4 to 5 business day delivery, giving you enough time to figure out how you want to arrange them. Again, I want to give a huge thank you to Displate for sponsoring this video. And now back to the video. Jack Nicholson's story is fascinating from the start. Born in Neptune City, New Jersey in 1937 to a 17-year-old showgirl, he was raised believing his mother was actually his sister, and her parents were his. It wasn't until 1974 when Time magazine uncovered the truth and told him about it. Unsurprisingly, Nicholson was a bit of a wild card growing up, voted class clown in high school and spending every day of a school year in detention. It was during high school that he discovered his passion for acting, heavily inspired by Marlon Brando, whose performance in On the Waterfront he watched 40 times. In 1954, Nicholson moved to LA and worked as an office assistant at the MGM cartoon studio, but was still set on becoming an actor. Without any formal training, Nicholson joined the Players Ring theater group, which led to small stage and TV roles and gave him the confidence to keep pursuing acting. He made his film debut in 1958's The Cry-Baby Killer, which wasn't well received, but it marked the beginning of his partnership with Roger Corman. Their next collaboration, 1960's The Little Shop of Horrors, did much better. Though Nicholson's role was small, his over-the-top, quirky performance gave us an early glimpse of his unique ability to act completely unhinged.
Oh, goody, goody, here it comes.
The 60s were a busy decade for Nicholson. He starred in westerns, horror films, and wrote a few of his own projects. In 1960, he acted in 3 films and later played a small role in the 1962 western, The Broken Land. In 1963, he reunited with Corman for The Raven, bringing his usual electric energy to the role and ad-libbing a lot of his lines. That same year, he starred in The Terror, another Corman horror that was plagued with production issues, especially because of Francis Ford Coppola's involvement, who really lengthened the shoot, leading Nicholson to joke, "We all thought we'd be machine gunned or fired forever out of the business." Nicholson also started gaining some recognition as a writer with Thunder Island, an action film about an assassin. As Nicholson's career progressed through the 60s, critics often used similar phrases to describe his performance. Words like raw intensity and unpredictable energy. He co-wrote and starred in several films that pushed him further into the spotlight, such as Flight to Fury in 1964 and Ride in the Whirlwind in 1966. And he found success as only a writer for films like The Trip and Head, with the latter being brainstormed amongst the 3 writers with a tape recorder and a lot of drugs. Even in the early years, Nicholson wasn't just acting. He was a creative force behind the scenes, writing scripts, helping produce, and giving other actors advice, like advising his friend Harry Dean Stanton to let the wardrobe do the acting. His willingness to experiment and take risks became his defining trait. Although his films weren't commercially successful, they paved the way for his big breakthrough when the industry began shifting to a darker, more grounded style of storytelling. Nicholson's patience and persistence paid off when an actor dropped out of 1969's Easy Rider, making way for Hollywood's new anti-hero. Nicholson's big break came with Easy Rider, directed by Dennis Hopper, where he played George Hanson, a small-town lawyer with a taste for booze and rebellion. Though his screen time was only 17 minutes, Nicholson put out an unforgettable performance.
Oh, I've got a helmet. I got a beauty.
The role originally belonged to Rip Torn, who left after a heated argument with Hopper, giving Nicholson the opportunity that would change his career forever. He embraced the character fully, improvising memorable lines, often while high, because the actor smoked real marijuana during filming, with Nicholson claiming they went through 155 joints during the campfire scene alone. But the production didn't have a relaxed vibe. Nicholson recalled that everyone wanted to kill one another. Either way, the film was a success, both critically and at the box office, catapulting Nicholson into the spotlight, and he received his first Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. From there, Nicholson quickly established himself as one of the industry's most compelling stars throughout the 70s. In 1970, he starred in 3 films, including 5 easy pieces, where he played a disillusioned former piano prodigy working in the oil fields. This role showcased a more vulnerable side of Nicholson, who even wrote some of his own lines, pulling from his own experience. Like the iconic diner scene where he confronts a waitress over a sandwich order, which perfectly captured his blend of humor, anger, and unpredictability, and was something that actually kind of happened to him. The film was a major success, getting Nicholson his second Oscar nomination, solidifying his reputation as one of Hollywood's most exciting stars. 1971 was another busy year for him, taking a supporting role in A Safe Place without any pay. He just wanted a new color TV in return. And he appeared in Carnal Knowledge, impressing critics with his ability to capture each nuance of his character, being labeled by critics as the most interesting new movie actor since James Dean. And that year, he also directed his first film, Drive, he said, which was an impressive debut despite its mixed reception, even causing a violent negative reaction at the Cannes Film Festival for its counterculture message. A year later, he took a quieter role in 1972's The King of Marvin Gardens, portraying a reserved character in contrast to his usual personality, before starting one of the best streaks in Hollywood that decade. The Last Detail, Chinatown, The Passenger, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest all released between 1973 and 1975. In The Last Detail, Nicholson played Billy Badass Badusky, a man in the Navy escorting a young sailor to prison. Directed by Hal Ashby, the film showcased Nicholson's talent for balancing humor and drama, and was actually a difficult film to get off the ground because of the amount of swearing in the script. It wasn't until Nicholson signed on with the film where his clout eased these concerns, and he even added more swearing of his own.
Someone bite off their ear just to do it. I mean, just to do it, just to get it out of your system.
His raw and rebellious portrayal of Badusky earned him another Oscar nomination, with critics calling it his best work yet. In 1974's Chinatown, directed by Roman Polanski, Nicholson played private investigator Jake Gittes, investigating an affair that spirals into a much larger mystery. Nicholson and Polanski were good friends for a while before the film, even during the death of Sharon Tate. In fact, it was actually in Nicholson's house in 1977 where Polanski essayed a 13-year-old that he was famously arrested and charged for, but Nicholson was out of state during that time. Polanski gave Nicholson a lot of freedom when playing the character, allowing Nicholson to work with screenwriter Robert Towne to add his own touches to the character. But the director and actor weren't always on good terms during the production. Nicholson is a huge Los Angeles Lakers and New York Yankees fan, being a season ticket holder of the former since 1970. His obsession got to the point that later in his career, when he had a lot of leverage with his contracts, he added clauses in them to allow him to leave the filming location to attend all Lakers games. Well, during the filming of Chinatown, his obsession wasn't much different, where he stalled filming because of watching Lakers games on his portable TV, even having Polanski threaten to smash the TV with a mop. But despite this, the film they created was a masterpiece, a hit both critically and commercially, with the two of them getting Oscar nominations. In 1975, Nicholson starred in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, playing Randall McMurphy, a rebellious patient in a mental institution, a role that seemed tailor-made for him.
Now, when the vote, the chief just voted, it was 10-9. Now, I want that television set turned on right now!
Nicholson prepared extensively, meeting real patients in psychiatric wards, and improvised a lot of his interactions with other patients, like in the basketball scene, fishing trip, and nighttime party. On set, his clashes with director Milos Forman over the creative direction became legendary, even stalling production for a couple weeks over creative differences. At one point, Nicholson refused to let Forman run rehearsals, taking over the role himself, with the two only communicating through the cinematographer by the end of filming. But despite the on-set tension, the final film was a triumph, becoming a box office hit and sweeping the Oscars, finally earning Nicholson his first Academy Award for Best Actor. That same year, he starred in The Passenger, playing a journalist who assumes another man's identity. Nicholson loved the film so much that he bought the rights to it, keeping it out of circulation until 2003 to protect it like a piece of art. In 1976, Nicholson appeared in The Last Tycoon alongside Robert De Niro, marking the only time these two acting giants, both fresh off Oscar wins, worked together. That year, he also worked with his idol Marlon Brando in The Missouri Breaks, where they had mixed feelings about one another. Nicholson spoke of Brando's cooperation fondly, though he was frustrated by Brando's use of hidden cue cards. Nicholson could always see Brando's gaze shift to these cards in scenes they had together. And I'm sure he wasn't fond of director Arthur Penn letting Brando make unusual choices like donning a bizarre costume and randomly adopting an Irish accent. Nicholson was pretty patient and professional in this production, but it goes to show that it's not always great meeting your idols. Nicholson's final film of the 70s was his second attempt at directing Goin' South, a western comedy where he played an outlaw who found out marrying a woman could absolve him of his crimes. The production faced difficulties, including frequent arguments between Nicholson and John Belushi. The film was not well received, with critics finding Nicholson's acting intriguing, but ultimately the character wasn't suited to be a leading man. He later joked, "The director of this film is one selfish, demanding egomaniac, and the leading man isn't much better." Although Going South struggled, Nicholson wasn't deterred, and the next decade would solidify his legacy with some of his most iconic roles ever. The 1980s began with one of Nicholson's most iconic and intense performances in The Shining. Directed by Stanley Kubrick, this film became legendary not just for its impact on the horror genre, but also for the grueling, almost torturous filming process. Nicholson played Jack Torrance, a father overseeing an isolated hotel in the off-season, and his portrayal of the character's descent into madness was unforgettable.
Have you ever had a single moment's thought about my responsibilities?
Kubrick was notorious for demanding an absurd number of takes, sometimes over 100 for a single scene, pushing actors to their breaking point. While most actors would have cracked, Nicholson embraced it, often adding his own madness to the role. One of the most famous examples was the iconic "Here's Johnny" line, which was completely improvised and Kubrick loved it. You could actually say Nicholson was a little too good with the role. He was breaking down the doors they made with an axe way too easily due to his background as a volunteer fire marshal, forcing the prop team to make them stronger. He even drew from his own experiences, like getting frustrated at his wife for interrupting his writing, which made Jack Torrance's unraveling feel all the more real. Interestingly, while Kubrick's style was infamous for breaking actors, Nicholson seemed to adapt in a unique way, turning their collaboration into a partnership rather than a power struggle. He said they worked well together, unlike Shelley Duvall, who was bullied by Kubrick throughout production. That's not to say it was smooth sailing for Nicholson, who was so frustrated at Kubrick's daily script changes that he began throwing the scripts he received into the garbage, choosing to learn his lines minutes before filming. After a year-long shoot that left Nicholson exhausted every night, The Shining was met with mixed reviews at first, but has since grown into one of the best horror films of all time. Nicholson's portrayal of Torrance remains one of his most defining roles, a testament to his dedication to doing whatever it took to make the character iconic. After The Shining, Nicholson kept things diverse throughout the 80s. In 1981, he starred in The Postman Always Rings Twice, playing Frank Chambers, a drifter in a steamy affair. Though initially panned, the film found appreciation over time and did well at the box office. Nicholson also had a role in Reds that same year, playing a quieter, more introspective character than usual, and even earned a supporting actor Oscar nomination for his efforts. Then came The Border in 1982, where Nicholson played a corrupt border agent. Although it was a flop and criticized for being too predictable, Nicholson considered it one of the best films he ever made. In 1983, Nicholson appeared in Terms of Endearment, playing a retired astronaut. Fellow cast members said working with him was crazy because his spontaneity on set elevated their performances. He improvised many of his scenes and even spoke with real astronauts to prepare for the role, which resulted in a show-stealing performance full of that typical Nicholson charm and humor, earning him an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. In 1985's Prizzi's Honor, Nicholson gained 30 pounds to play a hitman for one of America's wealthiest crime families. Despite mixed box office success, his performance was both menacing and endearing, earning yet another Oscar nomination. He went on to work with Meryl Streep in 1986 in Heartburn, and a year later reunited with her in Ironweed. While Heartburn did fine at the box office, Ironweed flopped pretty hard, but both his performances were well received, with both he and Streep getting Oscar nominations for Ironweed. Another notable role in 1987 was The Witches of Eastwick, where Nicholson played Daryl Van Horn, a mysterious man who arrives in a small town home to 3 witches. The production had its challenges, with Nicholson even threatening to walk off set if director George Miller was replaced, really believing in Miller's vision. Producer John Peters made things worse by pushing for bizarre changes, like adding aliens to the story after seeing the success James Cameron's Aliens had. Nicholson used his clout again to stop this, who along with Miller left the set until this aliens idea was forgotten. Nicholson was such a Hollywood big shot by this point in his career that he really could do anything. One example was when Peters was yelling and cursing at Nicholson in a table read, to which Nicholson turned to him and said, "You know something? You can talk to me that way, but if you keep going, I'll turn off. And if I turn off, you'll be in a lot of trouble." Peters remained quiet after that. Despite the chaos, Nicholson's charismatic performance helped make the film a success at the box office, but it was nowhere near the hit his next film was. Nicholson starred in Tim Burton's Batman in 1989, playing the Joker, a role that remains one of his all-time favorites. By this point in his career, Nicholson could do whatever he wanted, and his contract for Batman proved that. Just to even get him to accept it, the producers used Robin Williams as bait by offering him the role instead, a move that had Williams resenting Warner Brothers for most of the 90s. Nicholson took on a lower salary for a cut of the film's earnings and merchandising, a risky move at the time, but one that paid off big, reportedly netting him over $60 million, which adjusted for inflation is over $150 million today. Absolutely mind-blowing. As part of his contract, he wanted approval over the makeup designer and designs for Joker, as well as control over his schedule so he could have time off for the Lakers games, not start too early in the mornings, and have all his scenes shot in a 3-week block. The last part didn't end up happening though, because the production faced a bunch of rewrites and other issues lengthening the shooting schedule. But he still started the days later than most of the cast, with Michael Keaton recalling him always coming in around 10 AM after a late night of partying and dining out, and falling asleep in the makeup chair as they spent 2 hours transforming him into the Joker. But Nicholson gave it his all in this film. He loved the unpredictability of the Joker, which meant he could really do whatever he wanted with the character, so he improvised a lot, stealing every scene he was in.
You might join me for a week.
He was also really great to be around on set, making everyone feel relaxed, including Keaton, who initially was nervous about acting alongside such a powerful actor. In the end, Batman was a huge success, with Nicholson's Joker often overshadowing the hero himself and setting the bar for future comic book villains, proving yet again why Nicholson is one of the greatest to ever do it. The 90s were a mixed bag for Nicholson. He had some iconic roles, but also a few missteps. In 1990, he directed for the third and final time with The Two Jakes, the sequel to Chinatown, reprising his role of Jake Gittes. Originally meant to be made 4 years earlier with a different actor, the film faced setbacks, including conflicts between the production and cast that led to a complete shutdown. The second attempt didn't go smoothly either, with Nicholson having to do many script rewrites. Unfortunately, the film bombed at the box office, with critics finding it messy and boring, ending any hope of it becoming a trilogy as was originally planned in the 70s. 1992 didn't start much better, with Nicholson starring in 3 films. In Hoffa, directed by Danny DeVito, Nicholson played the famous Teamster leader Jimmy Hoffa. Although his performance received mixed reviews, it also earned him a Golden Globe nomination, but also a Worst Actor Razzie nod, which was shared with a role in his other 1992 film, Man Trouble, his worst reviewed film ever. He reportedly took the role to help revive the director's career, who he worked with on 5 Easy Pieces, but I don't think it helped his career much considering how hard it bombed. However, redemption came with A Few Good Men, directed by Rob Reiner. Nicholson played a high-ranking Marine officer on trial for the murder of a fellow Marine and was paid $5 million for only 10 days of work, appearing in 4 scenes that were nothing short of iconic. Reiner praised Nicholson, and that Nicholson going 100% into the role made all the actors go, "Ooh, I better get on my game here because this guy's coming to play." The film knocked it out of the park with reviews and box office numbers, and Nicholson's powerful performance stole the show with the limited screen time he had.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
The film features one of his most iconic lines and got him another Oscar nod for Best Supporting Actor. The mid-90s were a bit quieter for Nicholson. In 1994's Wolf, he made his final appearance in a horror film as an aging publisher who gains animal instincts after being bitten by a wolf. The Crossing Guard in 1995 saw Nicholson as a father seeking justice after losing his daughter in a car accident. It flopped commercially, and I doubt that title helped bring people to theaters. In 1996's Blood and Wine, Nicholson convinced Michael Caine to come out of retirement, but while the movie was well received, it bombed at the box office. Caine did share a great story of Nicholson from this production when everyone was rushing to set, including Caine, until Nicholson stopped him and said, "Don't run, they'll know it's us who's late." That same year, he reunited with Tim Burton for Mars Attacks, taking on 2 roles without even reading the script, simply because he loved working with Burton on Batman. The film, however, wasn't a success critically or commercially. By this point, Nicholson was fully embracing roles he found fun, regardless of box office returns. But if he wanted another Oscar, he could get one. In 1997, he starred in As Good as It Gets as Melvin Udall, a grumpy romance novelist with OCD who is rude to everyone but begins to change for the better. The character was tough to get right, with director James L. Brooks and Nicholson clashing regarding finding the right tone for the character, even halting production. Nicholson even worried audiences would dislike the film due to how horrible his character is to other people. However, the film was a huge success, becoming his second highest grossing movie after Batman. Nicholson's performance turned a repulsive character into someone complex, vulnerable, and unforgettable, earning him the Oscar for Best Actor along with co-star Helen Hunt, who won for Best Actress. He famously told Robin Williams after winning,
"You know, Robbo, now I have one for every decade."
It was a fitting way for Nicholson to cap off the 90s. After As Good as It Gets, Nicholson took on just 7 more films. In 2001, he starred in The Pledge, playing a soon-to-be retired police chief on a dark quest to find a child murderer. It was a more restrained, haunted performance, but the film struggled at the box office. In 2002, he starred in About Schmidt, playing a recently retired man on a journey to his estranged daughter's wedding. The role was a major departure for Nicholson, subtle and heartfelt, and earned him his final Oscar nomination, bringing his total to 3 wins and 12 nominations. After winning a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Drama, he joked that he wasn't sure whether to be proud or embarrassed since he thought they made a comedy. In 2003, Nicholson played it safer with Something's Gotta Give and Anger Management, showcasing both his charm and his knack for playing over-the-top characters. Both films were box office hits, but just when it seemed Nicholson might settle into safer roles, he surprised everyone in 2006 with one last performance as a villain in The Departed. Directed by Martin Scorsese, Nicholson portrayed Boston mob boss Frank Costello in such a sinister and menacing way, adding improvisation that made the character even darker. There's a well-known story where Nicholson told Matt Damon, "I wouldn't have made it this far if I wasn't a great writer," which we've seen in this video countless times with all his uncredited script additions. But Damon mentioned a specific example from The Departed where Nicholson took a short scene where Frank executes someone and kept on suggesting ways to improve the scene
if you leave the camera rolling.
The final scene used some of his suggestions, including the line, "Geez, she fell funny," that made his character just that much more sinister. He even pulled out a gun without warning Leonardo DiCaprio beforehand to make another scene more intense, being one of DiCaprio's highlights of his career. Nicholson's influence was so powerful that his involvement led rewrites to expand his role. The Departed was a massive hit and won Best Picture, and it showed that Nicholson could still command the screen. Next came The Bucket List in 2007 alongside Morgan Freeman, playing 2 terminally ill men on a road trip. The film was lighthearted, and while critics were mixed about it, audiences loved it, making it a box office success. But his final film, 2010's How Do You Know, was less memorable. Reuniting with James L. Brooks, it was a romantic comedy with an overblown $120 million budget that flopped hard at the box office. It wasn't the ending he deserved, but Nicholson didn't know it would be his last. Even as late as 2013, he didn't consider himself retired. Projects came and went, but his passion for new roles faded, and he began valuing his time off set more. Though Nicholson largely disappeared from the spotlight, he still made public appearances at the Oscars, SNL, and of course, courtside Lakers games. But these sightings started to become rare as the years went by, with some rumors of health issues circulating. But in 2023, he surprised everyone with an appearance at a Lakers game. It might sound sad for a career to quietly fade, but after everything Nicholson gave to Hollywood, it seems fitting that he now lives life at his own pace. Nicholson's career is one of the most remarkable in Hollywood history, spanning decades, defining genres, and forever changing what it means to be an actor. Whether it was his rebellious streak in the 70s that fit perfectly with New Hollywood, his unforgettable villain roles, or his ability to bring humor and heart to his later roles, Nicholson always played by his own rules. His charisma, unpredictability, and willingness to push boundaries made him one of the most captivating actors to ever grace the screen. And while his career didn't end with a grand farewell, it aligns perfectly with who he is, an actor who never followed the rules, not in his performances nor his approach to fame. Now, the man who captivated millions is embracing life on his own terms. A story surfaced recently about someone trying to bring him back to the screen, and Nicholson simply responded that he wasn't interested, saying, "You know what I did today? I sat under a tree and read a book." He's doing whatever he wants, and that perhaps is Jack Nicholson's greatest role of all. So there you have it. Jack Nicholson's legendary career and all the moments he did whatever he wanted as an actor. Do you think he had one of the best film careers? Share your thoughts below. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like and subscribe, and check out our Patreon for some cool perks. But until next time, have a good one. And once again, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Displate for sponsoring this video.